For this month's community redraw, I asked my audience to submit their own designs of an animal mixed with a bug turned into a horror to become a part of my anthology horror series, The Realm of Hopeful Horrors. Now, side note, I don't actually have a community redraw prompt for November 2025 yet. I'll put out what it's gonna be as a community post in a couple days, but give me ideas in the comments what I should do for it, and if I choose someone from the comments, I'll give you a shout out for picking your idea. But anyway, little disclaimer about this episode. As many people know, The Realm of Hopeful Horrors is a series of mine that's all public domain. Everything I make in it becomes open source, so anyone else can use the lore, characters, creatures, whatever for their own projects. I did contact the people who were chosen to be used in this episode in advance to make sure they were cool with their designs becoming public domain, but that does only apply to stuff that was actually chosen for this episode. It doesn't apply to the designs being shown in the submission scrolls. Those designs are still owned by the person who submitted them, so unless you get express permission from them to use that design, it's still rightfully theirs. But with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the next episode of The Realm of Hopeful Horrors. Let's go! Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Raquel stood by the murky waters of the lake, staring out, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. The rune stone that bizarre woman had handed her was just floating there an inch above Raquel's open palm. This had to be some elaborate prank, right? The sky did have a bit of a strange purple hue to it, but nothing around her was unbelievable enough to prove that she was in some other reality. Unreasonable reality, as that woman, Showtime, had called it. Raquel looked at the floating stone, then aggressively shook her hand. The stone just trailed a few inches behind, following her hand, no matter how hard she shook it. Okay, that is a little weird, I guess. Though it wasn't as weird as how she'd gotten here. She'd been on her way to have a very unpleasant conversation with her tennis coach, one she didn't even really want to have anyway, then poof, she was just here. Raquel was pulled out of her thoughts as she heard a thump. Was that her heart? Another. Definitely not her heart. Another, then another, getting louder. She turned and looked across the shore of the lake towards a slight clearing in the forest. Lumbering through came a hippopotamus, or at least something that she wished she could see as a regular hippo. It was green and purple with teeth spewing out of its mouth in every direction, horns lurching from its head, and a hide that looked like some kind of titanic caterpillar. Her mind tried to process a logical way to look at this thing, like it was some kind of hippo with a bunch of swamp goo stuck to it or something. But then it looked at her, staring at her with all 8 of its green eyes. She stared back until it charged. She turned and sprinted away, but could hear the thundering steps gaining on her. She was running along the lake, but then realized that going into the forest may slow the creature down more than her. She darted in between some trees and tried to pick up her pace even more, thinking back to everything that Showtime woman had said.
The rune of repulsion is a powerful one. It can help protect you from even the fiercest horrors in this region. And they know it.
That part echoed. They know it. Did that mean this thing was hunting her because of the stupid runestone? She tried shaking it away, even smacking it against a tree as she passed, but it was no use. This stone was sticking to her. Thankfully, her tactic of coming into the forest was sort of working. The burly hippo beast was having a harder time than she was weaving around trees. But not by much, and soon she came to a break in the trees where a field opened up, but stretched forth right towards a town. It looked like a quaint European village, sort of like places she'd seen on a family trip to Portugal a couple years back after her big tennis tournament in England. She didn't like the trees disappearing, letting the beast speed up again, but there was a flicker of hope as she saw what looked like people walking around the village.
Help! Hey! Help, please!
If they lived here, they had to have some way of handling this thing, right? A couple of the beings looked in her direction as she got closer, but the closer she got, the clearer it became that these things weren't people. Not exactly. She nearly stopped running when she realized the beings looking at her were like human-fly hybrids with large compound eyes.
Okay, yeah, this place is becoming more and more unreasonable,
Raquel thought. Unfortunately, it was the last thought she had before a burly snout thumped against her from behind and sent her rolling in the dirt. She landed on her back and, before she could get up, felt a crushing weight stomp onto her ribs. All air vanished from her chest and she wheezed. She was pretty sure her ribs had just punctured her lungs. But The crushing teeth coming for her head didn't leave her much time to prove that theory. She felt the teeth pierce her flesh. Then, the next thing she knew, she felt wind rushing past her. She opened her eyes just as she splashed down into the lake. She went under, but quickly breached the surface again. She grabbed at her torso, and it felt fine. She was still panicking, but was also completely uninjured. There was a brief flicker of relief before she looked up at the purple sky, realized she was still in this place, and thought, if that hippo thing was on land, what horrors may be lurking in the water? She started swimming as fast as she could towards shore, only to see as she approached another creature there waiting to greet her. Raquel was nearly at the shore when she spotted a 5-foot-long scorpion tail peeking up from behind some rocks. A slimy green foot suddenly reached over and stepped onto them. Crawling over the stones came, well, whatever this thing was. It was even more unreasonable looking than the hippo. It was like a frog covered in holes with scorpion claws and limbs reaching out of the holes. Its mouth had eyes scattered inside it, and it had 4 tongues that looked like mushrooms with domino masks on.
No, absolutely not.
Raquel muttered, choking on water as she turned and started swimming back out to the lake, only to see in the distance a black and red tail briefly splash out, then dive back under. She stopped. What horror was worse? This thing's tail looked pretty fierce, but at least its body was only about 3 feet tall, and it had no teeth. The frog horror had crawled right to the edge of the water, and it looked like it was going to come in to join her. Finally, she raised her runestone. As she started considering using it, it was as if she instantly gained knowledge of how to.
Okay, you better be more repulsive than this freak,
she muttered, aiming her open palm towards the beast. The runestone floated just in front of her palm. She tensed her hand, and a concussive ring burst out of the rune, flying towards the creature. Water splashed up around it, and it was knocked back, rolling over the stones and out of sight.
Okay, that'll freaking do,
she cheered. Unfortunately, she celebrated too soon. Just as she was headed closer to the shore to strike the frog again, excruciating pain exploded up from her leg, as something clamped around it, then pulled her under the water. She tried firing her weapon again, but was panicking too much to know where to aim. She saw a flash of red, felt another bite chomp right through her neck, and she gasped, sitting up on a cobblestone street. She looked around and immediately saw 6 of those fly human things going about their day. She was on the ground right near what looked like a quaint outdoor cafe. A few of the fly people were sitting there drinking and eating something pretty unappetizing looking. Some looked over at her, but most didn't even take notice, like it was completely uninteresting to them to see a random person teleport into the middle of the street. Raquel got up, brushed herself off, and noticed one person watching her intently. It wasn't a fly person, but wasn't exactly normal looking either. His face was like a Picasso painting come to life, but he was doodling on what looked like a regular iPad. She stared back at him for a moment, then said,
"I don't suppose there's any chance you speak English?"
He responded, but it didn't even sound like words, more like a weird jumble of grunts and buzzing noises.
"Cool, thanks."
Suddenly, she felt thumping on the ground again. A very familiar thumping. She heard a crashing sound, looked over, and saw that same hippo horror from earlier smashing through a fruit stand lining the street. The fly people were running from it, but it caught one, chomped its body in half, then kept coming. Others in the cafe leapt up to run away, though Picasso face remained. Still, Raquel knew she might actually be able to help now that she understood this runestone, and she liked the idea of getting revenge on this thing for killing her. She marched closer to it, raised her palm, and tensed. A concussive ring burst out, knocking some of the fly people back a bit, but mainly striking the hippo. Unfortunately, it was a lot heavier than the frog, and it only stumbled back from the blast. It quickly took notice of Raquel and started thundering towards her. Thankfully, as soon as she thought about what else this rune could do, she instantly knew. She closed her fist and tensed again. This time, a condensed bolt of repulsive force shot forward. This one hit the hippo in the head like a boulder. Its hide cracked, blue blood spurted out, and it stumbled back. She fired again, hitting its back, making another dent. She marched forward, firing again and again. She was either going to kill this thing or it was going to have to retreat. This felt kind of awesome. She almost felt like a superhero. That is, until she started to hear the angry grumbling and clicking sounds from around her. She noticed that the fly people were now all watching her, but they were shaking their fists and yelling something, but whatever it was, they were clearly angry at her.
What? It was killing people. It killed me earlier.
The creature started coming at her again, so she fired again. The beast was hit right in the head in a spot she'd hit before, and it collapsed to the ground. That just caused a bigger uproar of booing and yelling. Some of the beings even started picking up the fallen, bizarre-looking fruit from the stand and started hurling it at her. Raquel's heart started racing even worse than when she'd first run from the hippo. What had she done wrong? More people came, saw the downed creature, and joined in the booing. A familiar feeling from back home started churning up in her gut, and Raquel couldn't handle it. She just turned and sprinted out of the town, back towards the woods. Non-canonical Benny Shop here, and I'm not a public domain character myself, but I am here to tell you about the PopCross Studios novels and coloring books. Because if you're enjoying the stuff in this episode, you'd probably enjoy those as well. And heck, this video is coming out on Halloween, which means it's basically Christmas. So why not get yourself an early present or get a present for someone else, and pick them up a novel with a really great story and lots of art in it, like Fear of the Demon Hunters, A Mytholethal, A Vigilance. That one's even got a past life version of me in it. And who wouldn't want to get to know this pretty face a little better? Plus, there's never been a better time to buy, because if you buy one of these books, you can also buy another one. I guess that's always true, but that's just because it's always a good time to buy a PopCross Studios book. Links are in the description. Now back into the realm of hopeful horrors. Raquel found a stump to sit on and tucked her head into her knees. She was embarrassed how this feeling was winding her more than fighting literal monsters. She tried racking her brain for an answer. How could they be mad at her? Had she badly hurt someone in the fight? Part of her tried to tell herself to just not care. These were weird mutant fly people anyway, but then she felt bad for thinking that. They were still people, and clearly they thought she'd done something wrong. She sat there, thinking through every second of that ordeal, trying to find anything that she should have done differently. She decided it must have been how she'd hit some of the fly people with her first concussive blow, right? It seemed like a small mistake over literally saving lives, but she couldn't think of anything else. She decided to head back to the town to try to apologize if she could figure out a way to communicate with them and maybe help clean up. Part of her thought this was a ridiculous waste of time and she had way more pressing matters to deal with, but the feeling like she'd done something wrong and the need to assuage those people was overwhelming. She had always deeply hated the feeling of other people being mad at her. So she told herself she needed them to like her, to find safety in this place, and used that as enough justification to head back to the town. But when she got close, she saw another creature had found its way there first. There were people scrambling to get indoors as the frog-scorpion thing was hopping through the town, swiping its tail at villagers. Raquel got just down the road from it as she saw it stab its tail right through a poor fly person's chest, hurling them into a wall. Okay, don't hit any of the people, she thought. She closed her fist, aimed her rune, and fired. She hit the frog dead on in the head with a condensed bolt, and it rolled over itself backwards. It used its tail to push back to its feet quickly and leapt 10 feet into the air towards her. She fired again, with perfect aim honed by her tennis skills, and blasted the creature right out of the air, thumping back down to the ground. She started marching forwards, firing multiple shots, making sure only to hit the frog. And yet, very quickly, the angry booing and yelling started coming again. People were peering through their windows, some were even starting to throw rocks at her.
It's literally killing people, what do you want me to do?
No answer, just more booing. The creature got up and started hopping towards her again. Her heart was pounding. What was she doing wrong? The creature was getting closer. She racked her brain again. Could this rune shoot some kind of stun shot instead? Maybe they didn't want her killing these creatures. Maybe even if they were dangerous, they were endangered species or something? Maybe... But she had too many maybes and froze under the pressure, just to have the creature's stinger pierce through her chest. She woke up, feeling wind rushing past her again.
Oh, come on, not the...
She splashed down into the lake again, this time far farther out than before. What did those people want from her? She was literally saving their lives. Maybe being in that town with this rune had lured the hippo to them, but it couldn't have lured the frog. It had gotten there before she did. Was she doing a bad thing by killing the horrors? They were literally called horrors. She didn't have much time to think as she saw a red tail breach the surface near her. She held her breath, dove under, doing her best to look through the water, to see some kind of whale beetle coming towards her, with its mouth wide open. She assumed it was the same thing that had pulled her under and killed her earlier. She aimed her rune, but froze. What if this was wrong? What if there were some of those fly people near shore and saw her attacking this thing? Would they be mad at her again? Was she doing something wrong? Fighting back didn't feel wrong other than because of the judgment she was getting for it. She started realizing how painfully similar this feeling was to every argument she'd had with her best friend Jenna back home over the last year. But now, that paralyzing insecurity was going to get her killed. She opened her palm and just fired a concussive ring. As she hoped, that propelled her back through the water. She got to the surface and fired more and more, pushing herself rapidly towards shore. Like fighting the beast back in town had been, this was actually pretty fun. Only ruined by her thoughts surrounding the judgmental booing from the townsfolk. She got to shore and leapt out before the creature could get her. She desperately wanted to fire at it again anyway, but then heard an infuriatingly familiar thumping once again. She turned and saw the hippo horror lumbering around the shore. It spotted her and came running once more. She stared as it approached. This wasn't just another of these things. It was the exact same one that she'd already killed. Every marking, every chip in its teeth was the exact same. That meant these horrors respawned too after they died. So why did the townspeople care if she killed them? She took aim, ready to fire, but couldn't get the booing and jeering out of her head. Maybe she really was doing something wrong. Maybe they knew better than she did, no matter how right fighting back felt. So she didn't fire. She turned and just ran, and didn't get far before the creature caught her and ended her once more. This time she appeared on the ground in the woods, but could just see the town through the trees. She tucked her face into her arms to muffle a scream of frustration. Raquel hated this feeling more than anything. It may have been coming in a very different context than usual, but it was all too familiar. Her best friend Jenna made her feel this way all the time, like she was a terrible person for just wanting to live her life her way. Raquel and Jenna had been on the school tennis team together since middle school, but now they were headed into their senior year of high school, and Raquel had been scouted for a full scholarship to university, and was told by everyone who saw her play that she had the potential to be a world-renowned player, making an incredible living off the sport. Jenna had been the more naturally gifted of the two when they'd started, but Raquel had focused on training more and had been more determined to make it her career, while Jenna had started falling off. That would have been fine, they didn't need tennis to stay friends, but the more Raquel had talked about her future in the sport, the more Jenna seemed to have a million reasons why Raquel was wrong to pursue it. She'd say it's almost impossible to make a living as an athlete. She said it was unfair how men were paid better in the sport, and Raquel was supporting that system by trying to make it big in the tennis world. Or she'd say even if Raquel did get rich from the sport, rich people were ruining the world and she'd end up just like them if she made it big. No matter what counter-argument Raquel had, Jenna would always have some other criticism waiting. Jenna was well-spoken and confident too, and essentially the leader of their friend group, so their other friends all seemed to just get on board with whatever Jenna said. It got to a point where Raquel felt so bad about wanting to play tennis professionally that she was going to just quit. She had thought maybe Jenna is right. Jenna sounded smart and was always completely sure of herself with every argument she made, so maybe Raquel was doing the wrong thing by trying to go pro, no matter how right it felt. As Raquel sat curled up on the ground thinking about this, she heard a buzzing sound that was getting closer and closer, getting louder and louder, so loud that it was like a helicopter was right on top of her. She didn't even want to know what it was, but looked up anyway to see a new horror appearing. The ground shook as a grizzly beetle bear beast landed down near her and roared. She was too drained to do anything. "Please just make it fast," she muttered, but the creature didn't approach. She looked up at it. It grunted and nodded its head at her. She stared. It still didn't approach. It grunted again. She then sat up more. It nodded its head like it was trying to get her to stand up. So she did. The horror was still a solid 5 feet taller than her on its hind legs. It grunted again, and she realized it might be gesturing its snout towards her rune. She looked down at it and raised her hand. As soon as she did, the bear stomped down onto all fours and practically barked, shaking its head excitedly. It was like it wanted to play with her.
Do you want me to fight you?
It grunted, shaking back and forth in anticipation. She aimed her palm slowly, holding a moment to see if the horror did anything. It still seemed eager. She kept her palm open and fired. The bear was hit with a concussive ring. It rolled over on its back, then sprang up and charged at her. She closed her fist and shot, striking it in the head, making it fall over, only to quickly spring up into the air and fly above her, ready to swoop down once more. It was still shaking excitedly, like a dog playing fetch.
Are you kidding me? These things want to fight? This is like a game to them?
It soared down and she shot out one of its wings, making it drop to the ground. She fired at its head multiple times, cracking its exoskeleton. The hits were getting deeper and deeper through to its head, but it didn't seem to be making any pained sounds. Still, she stopped. She was about to kill it, and still wasn't sure if that was a bad thing. I mean, it would respawn, right? The beast got up, noticing that she'd stopped firing, and just looked at her curiously. It grunted again, as if to ask, "Why'd you stop playing?" In that moment, it almost felt like Raquel's entire being shifted mood.
What the absolute hell have I been doing?
She yelled.
These things want me to fight them. I want to fight them. We all respawn if we die. They kill me and the townspeople if I don't fight them. And I haven't been fighting them just because, for whatever reason, those bug people all get mad at me about it. Wow, I'm an idiot.
A grin spread across her face, and she dropped into a low stance, like she would to a dog she was about to start chasing around playfully. The bear dropped low too, then lunged at her, knowing the game was back on. She dove under it and fired right under its belly. She spent another 5 minutes battling with the bear before she finished it off. She then went looking for some of the other creatures. She found that horrible-looking frog thing and noticed quickly that it too was treating this whole thing like a game. Raquel started treating it like one and was very quickly having an absolute blast. She did lose a few rounds, getting killed by some of the creatures, but each death was hurting less and less. Plus, every time, she respawned, and would eventually find the creatures that she'd killed again, proving that they too were all respawning. A few of the times, she did appear in the town again when she respawned, to see more judgmental leers from the townsfolk, even when the bear beetle thing, that she'd started calling Thornhide, came into the town and mauled a few of the civilians before she took it down. Even after she did, the people booed at her again, and she just let them. She realized there was no pleasing them without hurting herself, and she wasn't actively hurting them by doing what she was doing, so she might as well just play the game she was here to play and let go of caring whether they were cool with it or not. It made the game a heck of a lot more fun to play. She didn't know how long she spent there in unreasonable reality, but figured she died about 15 times overall before the bear got her one last time, taking a big bite into her neck, and she woke up standing back on the sidewalk, headed to talk with her coach. Her clothes were a mess and she stunk of sweat, but as bizarrely as she'd left, she appeared back in her own world, back on her walk to go quit a sport she loved just because of what her so-called friend thought of her for playing it. She just burst out laughing at herself, then turned around to head home. She finally realized she didn't need to have that chat with her coach after all. There was no way she was quitting. If you enjoyed this, I recommend checking out the first 2 episodes of The Realm of Hopeful Horrors, linked in the description. Huge thank you to everyone who submitted for this episode, and specific thank you to the people chosen. Carno13, Mr. Green T-Rex Studios, Alexander Tahatjian, and Avacorn the Last Pony Bender. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and today's is essentially the message from the video. There's always going to be people in the world that very confidently tell you why you're living your life wrong and why you should live it more like them. And I'm not saying disregard all input and advice you get, and it is good to be open to realizing when you've been wrong about how you're doing things. But ultimately, nobody else can tell you how you're supposed to live your life right. And it's good to remember that a lot of the people who judge you for living it a certain way or try to tell you very confidently why you should do it some other way, a lot of those people aren't even enjoying their own life themselves. So why would you want to take their advice on how to live more like them anyway? You're going to get judgment from people no matter how you live. So just do your best to keep figuring out what the best way for you to live your life is, and keep on living that way regardless of the judgment.